When preparing for your All-State audition, I highly recommend practicing your scales every single day. And even though the required scale order starts with F, I would actually start with, in your practice session, start with A flat or start with E flat. Start with whatever scale is the most challenging for you so that you can practice it before you try to just run through the scales. So make sure that you're being attentive to what notes you're missing and what problems you're having and trying to fix those, and never looking at scales as just something that you should run through. We want to make sure that we're performing our scales, treating them as music because they are, and focusing on them so that we make sure that we create a beautiful product each time. I would try recording yourself really early in the process so that you can catch any mistakes that you might be making. Even if you're not at a super fast tempo, you can tell if you are rushing or dragging, or if you're playing the wrong rhythm, or notes that are cracking that maybe you didn't notice. All of those things are easier to catch if you record and catch them early. So for the middle school lyrical etude, this etude has a lot of details within it that I think are interesting. And I want to start by talking about the difference in the staccato markings in bar 6 versus bar 7. So in bar 6, we have staccatos under the slur on the and of 3 and 4 and the and of 4. In bar 7, we also have staccato markings under the slurs, but they're 2-note slurs and there's only one staccato. So when we have multiple staccato notes under a slur, that means that we actually want to articulate those notes, but just keep them connected. So in bar 6, we would play the notes. So you would actually tongue each of those. But when we have a 2-note slur, or multiple note slur, and we just have a staccato at the end of it, that generally means that we want to have a lifted release and that we create space between that note and the next note. So bar 7, so we have this lifted quality to it. So we actually don't articulate those, but in bar 5 and bar 6, you are going to articulate under the slur. In bar 7, we're just going to lift and create space. Another challenge to this is making sure that we create an accurate dotted 8/16 rhythm. This is one of the more difficult rhythms in music, I think. We want to make sure that we're thinking about having 3 16th notes within the dotted 8th. And so something I like to do with practicing dotted 8/16 is to actually articulate that. So at the very beginning, that you can actually do some articulated subdivision with this to show that. Now, this becomes even more important when we look at the transition from bar 9 into bar 10, and then from bar 14 into 15, where we have a dotted 8/16 moving to triplets. So something I would suggest with this is just to practice changing rhythm with a metronome on a single note. So you can have a metronome on 70, and we can just pick C in the staff, and you can do 1 beat of tonguing 16th notes, and then 1 beat plus an extra note of tonguing 8 triplets. So we get this. So that way you practice the change from 16th notes to triplets, and then we would play the dotted 8/16 after that. So we can alternate. And that way you can do work to feel exactly where that 16th note belongs and what its relationship is to the notes around it. I recommend in bar 9 and bar 11 to make sure to use the pinky F sharp, because you are playing an E flat with the right thumb either before or after those F sharps, and so that way you don't have to leap the thumb. Okay, and with the technical etude, so start this one much slower than 96 so that you make sure that you are paying attention to all of the details early. That's going to make it easier to incorporate. One of the biggest aspects of this etude is the difference in the note length and styles of our three different types of eighth notes. So in the first measure, we have an eighth note with an accent, right? And then starting in bar 5, we have marcatos, which is an eighth note with an accent and a staccato. So I would also consider the first note of beat 3 of bar 4 as being a marcato as well, because it has both of those. And then we just have like regular eighth notes without any marking. So like measure 13, beat 2, and measure 14, beat 3. And so from a starting point, you want to make sure that you're creating difference in those in terms of the attack. So how our tongue is moving in our mouth, I would think of a T consonant, a ta, 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 or to, to, to for the accents, and then more of a D consonant, da, 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 do, 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 for the ones that do not have accents. Important to pay attention to a couple things in this that are a little, I would say, that go against our expectations. So in the first bar, on beat 3, we've been coming down this B flat major arpeggio. We would expect another going down, but instead it changes to C. So I think that's a little bit of a weirdness that he kind of throws in there. And then in the sequence that happens in bar 5, 6, 7, we have this, and what we would expect on the third beat is if it was following the same pattern. But there we have a leap of a third. So I think that can take you by surprise a little bit as well. Anytime that we have a change in what has happened already in some sort of pattern, it's important to pay attention to that so that we make sure that we're being accurate each time. I think it's also fine if you want to do a little bit of a ritardando at the end of this and be a little more emphatic about the ending. But I would take as many opportunities as you can to play for your friends, play for your parents, play for neighbors, and get used to performing. You know, we should practice performing the same way that we practice our instrument, particularly when it's for something that is a little bit tricky. So, best wishes as you prepare for this, and good luck at the audition.